Based on these assumptions, based simply on the assumptions that people make themselves as well off as possible subject to their budget constraint, and firms maximize profit subject to demand of consumers and input markets, we're going to answer the three fundamental questions of economics. The three fundamental questions of economics that we're going to focus on is what should be produced, what should be produced in society, what goods and services, how to produce those goods and services, through what production process, etc., do you produce those goods and services, and who gets those goods and services. What goods and services get produced, how they get produced, and who gets them. Okay? And all of these three questions are going to be answered through one mechanism, which is prices. We're going to show you how the development of prices in markets can essentially solve these three fundamental questions of economics. Okay? So to explain this, I mean, you'll learn this over the whole semester, but to explain this a bit quickly, let's start with one example. I want to start, as I said, this will be sort of a public policy focused class. I want to start on probably the most significant public health issue that you all will deal with over your lifetimes, which is the problem of obesity. Now, not that you'll deal with it. You guys are all in great shape. But society will deal with it. Okay? This is a problem of increasing inequality. If I was giving this class to a junior college in the South, a third of you would be obese. Okay? This is really a problem. That's a problem of great inequality. It's a problem large in America. If we think about obesity, in 1960, 12% of Americans were considered obese. Today, it's 35% of Americans are obese. And obesity is the leading cause of the rise in diabetes, or diabetes, I guess, which is a disease by which the body's not able to regulate its glucose, its blood sugar. Diabetes is a progressive and often fatal disease with no known cure. Once you get it, we can only manage it. We can't cure it. And the rate of diabetes has doubled in the past decade. Indeed, 1 in 3 children who were born in 2000, a little bit after you guys, 1 in 3 children born in 2000 will have diabetes before they die, okay? So in America. So this is a huge epidemic, a huge problem. Now, let's think about how we might deal with this. Now you're a public policymaker, and you want to deal with this. One thing you might say is, look, one way we can deal with this is by taxing fatty foods. Okay, foods that are fatty, that cause people to get obese and get diabetes, are too cheap. Maybe we can tax them and make them more expensive, and therefore cause the price of those foods to rise. Okay? So we can say we're going to tax foods that have fats in them, and that will cause their price to rise. That price rise will answer all three of these questions. First, the what question will be answered because once that price goes up, people are going to want less of these fatty foods and more of healthier foods. Now, how much? That's a question we'll talk about later. But at least the direction is clear. They'll want less fatty foods and more healthy foods. So that's going to shift the nature of production in the food market. What is going to be produced? It's going to be that price signal is going to go to producers and say we should produce less fatty foods and more healthy foods. So that price signal is going to determine the what. Okay? It's also going to determine how foods are produced. Why? Because the inputs into foods that are fatty are going to be less attractive. And inputs into foods that are less fatty will be more attractive. So foods will be produced in a way which will contain less fat. So that price signal will change how things are produced. It will also change who gets the goods. Because if the price of fatty goods goes up, that's not going to matter for a wealthy person. Okay? You know, if a bag of Doritos goes up 25 cents, someone with an income of $200,000 doesn't care. But it is going to affect a poor person. That could be a meaningful effect in their budget. So it's also going to determine who gets the goods. You're going to see a particular shift away from these fatty foods in the lowest income populations because it's a much bigger hit on them. So basically, you're going to see that price signal answering all these three fundamental economics questions. Now, of course, in reality, life's not that smooth. I've just done a very glib overview. In reality, for example, it may be that high-income consumers are the ones who respond the most to the price signal. They may say, ooh, prices are going up, that means Doritos are bad for you, I'm going to shift. Maybe they have more shopping options. Maybe poor people can only go to a local supermarket and they don't have apples there, so they're stuck eating Doritos. where rich people have lots of shopping choices. So when the price of Doritos goes up, they can go to the farmer's market and get apples. Okay? So in reality, this could be more complicated. But in practice, that's the way that these things work. Now, so basically, our assumptions are going to face some limits. But in this kind of simplified framework, we'll be able to answer some basic directional questions.